Hi everyone, it's Jimmy here, and in today's video, I'm going to go over how to respond to client feedback. It's positive or negative, but in this case, negative, with a real life example, which I cover off in the previous video, which you can check out here. For those who are new and are watching this for the first time, I'm Jimmy from My Online Guy, digital marketing agency, and we just help businesses make more from marketing with less. And if you like business videos, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. But like I said, make sure to check out the previous video for some context. So in this video, we're going to go through some a real life situation where a client of mine, one of the first clients I had, got really upset with some of the output that I gave him, and then how I responded to that. But you'll get a lot of contents from the previous video. I would advise watching that first. So I am burying my neck here. I'm going to be the first to admit this. I'm burying my neck here. I'm actually showing you the real email that I received and my real response, and then we'll break down the response and I'll walk you through the process I took to get to that point. So if you come from the first video, hopefully this gives you a bit of context to the actual email that I got. So if I turn this on here, you'll see this is the actual email I received from that first client, Chris, who's still a client with me today, but this is the actual email I received. So I'm just going to read it out and I'm going to break down the bits and we're going to unpack it a little bit. So, hi James. Now that was the first trigger I knew he wasn't happy. He normally calls me Jimmy like everyone else, but called me James. Clearly was not happy with the situation. So a couple of things. So some context. I'd sent him the website. I'd sent him the website to review, and this is what he picked up. So a fair few typos in the main text. There was also some punctuation. Please proofread again and fix. Site is slow. Forms need capture. Mobile background photo. So they're just feedback, but this is the bit that actually is the critical feedback. And knowing how to respond to this stuff will mean the difference between your business or agency or whatever is succeeding or failing, in my opinion. So I'm actually not that happy with the content. It sounds very amateurish and not very polished. I know you gave me free reign. I know I gave you free reign with this, but I was expecting a high quality of content, to be straight with you. Although I understood we were just looking for leads, and if I was reading this, I would be thinking these guys sound like amateurs, and if they leave simple mistakes on the website, then they'll miss on my job. Our competitors from other Ryco stores are going to read this entire content also. What do we need to fix ASAP? And like I said in the previous video, I was pretty upset when I received this because my first client, I told him that I was going to put a huge amount of effort into this project, and I dropped the ball. So, like I suggested in the first video, you need to take a step back when you get something like this and not knee-jerk into a response. You need to think and formulate it. So I actually took about 5 hours to formulate a response for this. I took a breather, I went for a walk, and then I came back and formulated a response. And this is the response I gave, and this is how we're going to unpack this now. And I'm going to explain the importance of the wording in your response to make sure that you actually create an advocate and someone that's going to champion you instead of pissing someone off that's trying to give you constructive feedback. So this was my response. Like I said, this is a real situation. This isn't just a made up scenario. So I think the best way to go about this is I'm just going to read it out and then we're going to talk about the different bits of it. So hi Chris. Firstly, thank you for sharing your concerns with me. I appreciate you taking the time to put pen to paper. That's really important to when someone takes the time to give you feedback, whether it's positive or negative, you have to acknowledge that it takes time to do. Because like I've said to Chris in the past, if he didn't actually care, he wouldn't have sent it. He would have just said, we're done, I'm going to find someone else. But he actually wrote this. When you think and unpack why he did this, he was actually trying to help me out and give me some feedback. So by acknowledging that it takes time to do this stuff, you immediately frame the email reply back in the right frame of mind. It's like, I appreciate that this is constructive. So thank you for taking time to put pen to paper. They are all real and valid concerns, and I'm not here to make excuses, to sit here and make excuses. The reason that's in there is because you want to make sure that the person knows that that this isn't going to be a 200-word email about all the excuses. So it's better to be upfront and forward with that and bare your neck and go, look, they're all valid concerns. Everything you're saying is right, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like what I've done is good, because there was excuses. The excuses were the writing that I got done was done offshore and I didn't check it. The excuse is that I didn't check it. But like when if someone's giving you this feedback, they don't want to hear the reasons it didn't happen. They just want to understand what happened, and they want a solution, right? So I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. It's a monumental stuff up that this copy was ever publicly released and exposed to failing in my process. That is the excuse, but it frames that I'm not passing the responsibility on to someone else. The responsibility is mine and mine only. And what it did is expose to failing in my process, because a lot of times the clients are giving you this feedback. They want to kind of know that it's not going to happen again, especially if you're working with someone for a long time. So saying that it's exposing a failure in your processes really shows that you acknowledge that there's something fundamentally wrong with the way you're doing it. And I was sold the sizzle, so to speak, by a guy who made himself out to be the second coming of Christ. And you're exactly right. Most of what he was written in garbage at the very best and way too SEO centric, thus unreadable. So that can come off as a little bit of excuse, but it's more giving context to why it happened. It's not an excuse going, oh, I'm blaming him for it. It's just giving some context. So I put my faith in someone that didn't deliver. So that's what happened. And I go, yeah, it's garbage, but at very best, it sort of achieved what it needed to achieve. But what you're saying is exactly right. It obviously goes without saying that the person is no longer on the team. Just giving some positive actions. So taking the constructive feedback and giving some positive actions to it. My biggest disappointment was the fact that you had to bring it to my attention and it slipped past the keeper. I'm well aware that your friends from other stores will be reading this, and I'm personally embarrassed to think that you were potentially being judged on the redesign as it sits. I personally rewritten all the content myself today on Ryko to ensure that the standard I expect is being added as I write this. So essentially what I'm reinforcing there is that he's given us his concerns. Chris has given me his concerns about it being amateurish, and I'm reinforcing that's a valid feeling to feel, being judged. And I want to show that I have empathy for the situation. I'm just not going, oh, you brought this to my attention, I'm going to fix it. It's like it's called a power apology. You want to reinforce exactly what they're saying in their email or in their conversation, being like, I understand, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to think that this is happening to you, and I apologize, especially if they're bringing it specific to attention about his competitors and Ryko. That's probably the core of the issue. So I personally, and I want to emphasize this bit here, I've personally rewritten all the content myself today. Shows personal responsibility for the action. That's a huge part of this email, is not necessarily that the mistakes happen. I think any business owner or anyone you work with will understand mistakes happen, but it's your personal actions that make a massive difference. And I think it's a big failing as you get larger as a business, not taking personal responsibility for what your team does. I honestly think that you have to personally hold the reins of this stuff, and you have to take personal responsibility. So I've really tried to emphasize that. So the reason you're working with me is because it was me, and I've personally taken responsibility and personally rewritten it so we get better outcomes. And I've also reviewed the site itself, and not only to address your concerns, but also give it another overhaul to give it a more polished and aligned closer to other Ryko sites. Whilst being modern, these updates will be completed along with the new content by the time you wake up tomorrow. So I basically acknowledged that he wanted this done quickly, so you can see fix this ASAP. If he wouldn't have put this in here if he wasn't wanting it done ASAP. If I just said, oh, this will be done by the end of the week, it probably would have completely forgotten the rest of the email and just focused on that point. So, when you make a mistake, you need to fix it, and you need to yield a little bit and work with the client to work within their parameters. You're the one that's fundamentally affecting what's happening to them. So you need to acknowledge that and go like, I've also not only fixed the mistakes, but I've also given it a little bit extra love to make sure that this exceeds your expectations. Because what happens is Chris's expectations of me were here. When this content happened, it dropped to here. I need to get his expectations back up to here and leave him there. If I want to create a advocate that's going to support and continue to support the agency well into the future. So in regards to the site speed as part of my process, this is more just answering his questions. So don't forget to answer the questions that they have as well. And then you need to end on another sincere note. So I have let the team down here, and I sincerely apologize for that. I could sit around moping about the situation we are in and the ramifications of this failing, but I much prefer to show you that we can overcome this, get back on track, and make sure it doesn't happen again. So reinforcing that, like, I am taking what you're saying on the chin. I am taking it on board. We're going to overcome this, and we're going to get back on track, and it's never going to happen again. That's basically what you need to do. You need to, so when you get a email that is not exactly what you're expecting, you need to sit down and unpack, read between the lines, read that he's not, so he says this stuff at the top, but he says I'm actually not happy with the content. It sounds very amateurish and not polished. So you need to work out why that happened. You need to explain how it happened without giving excuses. So sold the sizzle by a guy who made himself out to be the second coming of Christ. So I explained the situation, and then I explained how I'm going to fix it, and I put an extra effort into how it's going to be addressed, because even though he hasn't explicitly asked, well, he has actually, when fix this ASAP, you've got to offer a solution, and you've got to offer that it's never going to happen again. That's a huge part of these emails, is going, okay, so addressing and reinforcing that it is an issue and his opinion is valid and it's taken on board. An explanation to why it happened, an explanation to how you're going to go above and beyond to fix it, and then also reinforcing again that you're taking it in the spirit it's intended, and to actively encourage more feedback in the future, because that's what I always end my emails on. If it's not, if it's critical feedback, is going, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and write this. I actively encourage feedback, and it's all a learning process. If you do that, this is generally what happens. You basically get positive feedback. So this is what Chris mentioned once we finished off. We started using Jimmy and his team approximately 10 months ago to do a complete redesign of our website and make it, build it to make it more attractive for Google and what our potential clients are searching for. We reversed engineered it basically. I must admit I did push fairly hard for us to get some key goals established so we could get a good measure on the result he was proposing. Jimmy was very honest and explained how we would achieve these goals, these organic ranking KPIs. 11 months on, and wow, I'm so glad we decided to use my online guy and Jimmy, as he delivered on his promise and more. One of the key goals was to establish organic traffic, so we're not so reliant on Google Ads for our lead gen. Our organic listing now dominates the first page of Google when generating leads at much lower paid costs than ads, thanks Jimmy and team. It just goes to show that if you put a bit of effort into these emails, take them into the spirit they're intended, learn from them, and never make the mistakes again, you will get good outcomes. It may feel like at the time that it's the end. At the time when I got that email, like I said in the first video, I really felt like it was the end. I felt like I just ruined our chances of growing this agency. First client I ever got, I've messed them up. But honestly, if you just handle those emails and that feedback in the spirit it's intended, learn from it, and never make that mistake again, then you get advocates like Chris who who have a newfound respect for you. Because you've taken their advice on, you've acknowledged it, you've explained it, you've learned from it, and you've gotten better because of it. They start to become your advocates and start to champion what you do. So guys, that's what I'm going to end this video on. That if you do get one of these emails that knocks you off your feet, take the time to sit down, unpack it, and think about what they're actually trying to say, and just bare your neck, acknowledge it, give a power apology. Really explain how you're going to fix it and make it better, and how you're going to put in the effort to fix it. Acknowledge again that you appreciate them bringing this to your attention, and then never do it again with them. Because if Chris had done it again, that would have been it for it. You only get one shot to, once you put an email like that in the world, you only get one shot. If you do it again, you're out. So guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.